I can't tell you how many new clients I've gotten because they've had an existing relationship with the financial advisor. They're very into Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a growing part of their portfolio. And when they bring it up, they get laughed at or they get told to sell. And you really just kind of show your hand as not understanding potentially the most important technology and asset class of our generation. I think one of the most valuable things you can do as an entrepreneur, obviously there's a lot of macro trends that are very hard to weather, AI and tariffs and all this stuff. Just plant the orange flag. Like, be bold about it, be proud, plant the orange flag, offer services around Bitcoin, and you will stand out from your competition.
Bitcoin is a currency on the internet.
If you don't trust any other currency, this is where you go.
It's going to outperform everything.
Bitcoin could eventually be worthless.
Every day is a good day to buy Bitcoin.
Bitcoin reached its highest price to date.
Bitcoin hitting a new high. It really has reached escape velocity.
There is no second best.
Who cares about Bitcoin?
It's the only secure database that's ever been invented.
Antisocial.
Bitcoin is the real deal.
Stupid.
Everything is bullish for Bitcoin.
Immoral.
It's going up forever, Laura.
Fix the money. Fix the world.
Wyatt is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Basilic LLC. Joining us as a CPA, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of trusted CPA or other affiliated firms. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as a recommendation appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Welcome to the Bitcoin for Financial Services Media, the podcast where sound money meets professional services. We explore how to build the financial services industry within the principles, ethos, and values of Bitcoin. We're super excited to be taking you through the first episode. Let's get started.
Alrighty. We're not live, but first episode. Welcome, Wyatt O'Rourke. How's it going, man?
I'm great, brother. How are you doing?
Doing well. So just so everyone knows, today is, I guess, the day after Black Friday. And this is the very first episode of the Bitcoin for Financial Services podcast. And it's going to end up being a pretty crucial part of a brand that Wyatt and I have been building at this point for about 6 months. And so we are thrilled to kind of finally be in front of some mics, cameras. There's been a lot of work that's gone into all of this. And so we are excited to kind of kick things off. The structure today is mainly just, hey, let's give some introductions about who we are individually, how we're working together, and then really lay the groundwork for where we're going with this whole endeavor with integrating Bitcoin into TradFi existing financial services and where we go from there. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you get into on a daily basis? What qualifies you to to be on the show and kind of talk through all these topics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder of Basilic Financial. We're a Bitcoin-focused wealth management firm. We help our clients with sound money strategies, and our ultimate goal is to help them achieve prosperity with purpose. We still do some traditional finance work, but it's predominantly focused on serving Bitcoiners. We're a state-registered RIA in Colorado, and when I started this business, I was already a Bitcoin maximalist, had some history in traditional finance, my degrees in finance, really just kind of identified more as an entrepreneur. At that point, I was very involved with the Denver Bitcoin community. I wanted to start a Bitcoin company, but I didn't know how to code or whatever. And, my peers are other, maximalists. And so I was just thinking, how can I do this? And was talking with friends and mentors and decided to adopt the RIA business model and just integrate Bitcoin into it. And I think one of the big themes we'll be talking about over the course of this podcast is, I think Bitcoin financial services is the most exciting subsector of Bitcoin to be in right now, because we have this tried and true traditional finance playbook. It already exists. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We just need to apply Bitcoin to it. And we'll really kind of get in the nuts and bolts of how different professionals do that with their businesses, which will be, exciting. So, we predominantly help Bitcoiners with, I've stacked sats, now what? And that kind of comes in the terms of financial planning, custody solutions, inheritance planning, helping them be good stewards of their assets, understanding the responsibility they have as the first generation of Bitcoiners and how that plays into their financial lives. I'm also the author of the Bitcoinization of Finance. I currently serve as the Chief Marketing Officer of the space, which is Denver's Bitcoin Citadel. You can think of it as co-working meets event space, meets social club, meets professional trade organization. I'm also working on some opportunities here, which I'll be excited to announce on the podcast in digital credit. Can't quite do that just yet, but a little teaser, and I'm also very excited about that.
No, I love it, man. And yeah, my name is Jordan Guess. I own a CPA firm here in Kentucky, and I'm also co-founder of a Bitcoin accounting and tax software called Bitment, and been a Bitcoiner since I think late 2020. And yeah, I'm thrilled about this because I've seen and Wyatt's seen the landscape of, you talk to enough folks in the financial planning, advising space, and on my side, on the tax advisory side specifically, there's a lot of bad information out there about what Bitcoin is. There is the cringe word, I cringe at least when I hear it, crypto, and how that gets lumped in. I think that's going to be a really just consistent theme that we talk about, and why Bitcoin is different. Even driving over here, Wyatt, today to record, I was thinking through that meme of the two Venn diagrams of someone who thinks Bitcoin in one circle has no value, and the other circle is someone who can explain the difficulty adjustment. And in the middle, right, when those two circles overlap, and the meme is, I've never met someone in the middle here where they understand the difficulty adjustment and can explain it, and they think Bitcoin has no value. And I think that kind of lays out, dude, I think that kind of lays out like what we're getting at with this whole show, is that if you understand what Bitcoin is, why it's different from every other cryptocurrency, and frankly, every other fiat currency, you start to see the world differently. You go down, pick your favorite rabbit hole, and there's lots of that. We won't be able to touch all of those rabbit holes, but on the show, but that's kind of the whole essence of what we're getting at here, using Wyatt's extensive background in planning, financial planning, and on my side with the tax planning and tax prep work. Yeah, I'm just excited to see where this goes. And I guess, Wyatt, you should probably tell the story because, one, you have a funny anecdote going all the way back to Vegas, I guess, earlier this year, of just how we got started. Because I think we've both been thinking about this, you in Denver, me in Kentucky, and I think it's a fun story that's worth taking 4 or 5 minutes to tell on how we even got to meet and started putting all this together.
Yeah, certainly. It is a very Bitcoin story, and this is a fun episode because it's just you and I. Usually we'll be bringing guests on, and we want to take the opportunity here to really give the audience some background, what we're going to be talking about, how we got to this point. And it was back in May. I was talking to a mutual friend, Jesse Gilger. He's at Sound Advisory, another Bitcoin focus, RIA. I guess they're now under Gain Trust, actually. And part of the work we do at the space is we're big into events, and we've identified summits or small conferences, generally around 150 folks or so, as being very high signal events or type of events that Bitcoiners enjoy going to, because you have very intimate networking opportunities. You can talk to the speakers. You can actually get your hands dirty and learn a little bit, as opposed to just getting lost in the crowd of 10, 20, 30,000 people at a conference. And so in Vegas, I was talking with Jesse, and we kicked around the idea of doing something in this kind of realm at the space. I wasn't quite sure how it would be put together or what we would talk about, or if the industry is even big enough to do something like this. And this is back in early last year. So I was talking with Jesse. He's like, hey, you got to get a hold of this guy named Jordan Guess. I was like, I have no idea who the hell that is, but sure, I'll reach out to him. go through the conference, talk to a handful of other folks, get back doing the follow-ups, and all of a sudden this guy named Jordan Guest schedules a call on my calendar. I was like, holy smokes, that's crazy. I was supposed to reach out to Jordan Guest, and that's how we got introduced. And come to find out, you had already done quite a bit of legwork of trying to plan something in this industry. And as soon as you kind of gave me your sales pitch, I was like, you know what, screw it, let's do it. I was instantly in. We hit it off. I think we're pretty much two peas in a pod. Think about things very similarly, see the world very similarly, have similar backgrounds. Obviously, very complementary work. Me being an RIA and you being a CPA, and then we just really hit the ground running. Fortunately, you kind of had a playbook of what we want to do. I had some experience running events at the space, and we really kind of got into planning our inaugural summit, which I think we should touch on a little bit later. But that's my recollection of the beginnings of Bitcoin for financial services. Jordan, I don't know if I left anything out.
No, it's perfect. I mean, the funniest part about the whole thing was I'd basically given up on the idea when I was talking with Mitch Moore, because Mitch Moore is the guy who was saying, hey, you should talk to Wyatt. He might be interested in this. And it was kind of a final gasp. Like, I just had a quick intro call with Mitch, who's not too far away from you, and you all know each other from the Colorado Bitcoin scene. And I just was still telling people about it, but at this point it had gone through the iteration of, well, I'll do it here in Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm at. That wasn't going to work. I looked out to a few different venues. It just didn't make sense. And there's a financial risk, right, of starting an event, especially if you're just going at it completely solo and you say, well, I'm just going to host it at a hotel and I need to block off a certain number of rooms and I'm on the hook for the rooms we don't sell and the event space, the food, the drinks, blah, 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 right? It's a lot of work, as we found out. And so I was thrilled that, hey, there's another, Bitcoin Citadel out there that, hey, maybe this is a good fit. And so, and just thank God for cal.com, right? You had and you're 2 hours behind me. So, I mean, it was already 3 or 4 in the afternoon for my time, but you had some time, about 3 or 4 your time. So we hopped on that day and the rest is history. So yeah, we should touch on the summit. We threw that event together really in the course of 4 months and got corporate sponsors involved. We got a really high caliber group of speakers to come out, make the trip to Denver. Of course, there was, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 that were local, but many of them had to travel to come speak. And I think we should and I always appreciate Wyatt is always just very thankful, no matter who he's talking to. Something I've noticed about you. And I think I just applaud you on that. Just however it comes, whatever situation we're in, you're always the first to say, thanks for having us. This means a lot. And I think we should lead with that. I mean, the number of people that took a risk on our event for 2025, just about a month and a half ago, was really just something that kind of blew me away. I'm sure it did for you as well, Wyatt. The speakers, the attendees, and of course the corporate sponsors who, put their time, put their money behind this endeavor was just, that was moving. And I think that fueled us to make sure that we put on a truly unforgettable inaugural event, which is hard to do the first year, right? I mean, that's tough. So yeah, we had about 150 people that came out, and I think there was a lot to be learned. More than anything, I think a lot of people made some great connections, and that's really what these events are about, right? You meet other service providers. They do things that you don't do, but your clients ask about. And so you're just building that network of trusted people that you can refer things out to over time. So that was at least what I got out of it.
No, 100%, man. I appreciate you saying that. And something I appreciate about you is that you always remember to thank the wives, which sometimes I forget, which is not good. So you saved
just
my
a
ass
sticky note on my
handful of
computer
times.
screen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, and that's what I think, when I look back on why before we met, I was bearish on if, I could pull this off single-handedly, which I don't think I could have done just because it is, a lot of work. But I was wrestling back and forth with, is this industry big enough? Like, do we have enough, RIAs, estate planning attorneys, CPAs, asset allocators, investors that come talk? And for some reason, I was just thinking very small. And, January, February of 25, I was like, I don't know. Like, what are we going to talk about? It turns out that was very silly. Like, we had a lot of corporate sponsors that were interested in being involved in the event. We had a local mortgage lender, with Bitcoin big exchange. We had speakers from lending companies. Unchained was a sponsor. We had the Pearl Fund was a sponsor. Satoshi Pacioli was a sponsor. I think I'm forgetting one, unfortunately, it'll come to me. But regardless, like once we actually started doing the legwork and getting out into the community, I was really impressed by the amount of companies that were interested in being involved. And I'm really excited for next year's event because we were still even a little slow for some bigger companies to get involved. We had some conversations with, hedge funds that weren't able to make it due to time constraints. We had some conversations with ETF issuers that weren't able to make it given time constraints. And now that we're just being so much more intentional with it because of the success of the event, I'm really excited about what we can build it into. But in classic Bitcoin fashion, it's two guys came together. It's like, hey, I think we should do this. Do you know how to do this? And it's like, I think so, maybe. And it's like, screw it, we'll make it work. And that was really kind of the motivation. But then, our kind of selfish intentions where Jordan and I've talked about this a lot just privately, where it's really kind of a shame or embarrassing where we obviously, put ourselves out to be professionals in the space. I think we do great work. But then when it kind of comes down to referrals, I'm working with a Bitcoiner. I want to refer them to a Bitcoin native estate planning attorney or a Bitcoin native, CPA. I have like a referral for both of those things. And it's insane. And it doesn't make me feel the most comfortable being very deep in this space that I have a single referral partner for, a lot of these auxiliary services my clients need to utilize. And so we really wanted to try to bring everybody together, get them in one space. I do think doing events at a Bitcoin Citadel just kind of elevates it. Just the fact that, the space itself is Bitcoin themed. You really kind of have a good sense of, okay, this is going to be legit. I'm not going to have to be worried about if I'm stuck talking to crypto bro. And so I do think that really kind of helps elevate, an event. So I would really encourage anybody interested in doing that. Check out, the space, check out Bitcoin Park, check out Presidio. It's a very cool thing to do. And so once we kind of had our guiding light there, I think we were kind of off to the races. And then I think we really just started reaching out to speakers and folks that were interested in coming. Your wealth deserves intention. Basilic Financial is a Bitcoin-focused wealth management firm built to help our clients find balance between money and meaning. We integrate sound money strategies across 4 distinct personalized services: financial planning, individual wealth management, retirement services for SMBs, and Bitcoin financial services. Your prosperity, your purpose, intentionally guided at Basilic Financial. Visit our website at basilic.io to schedule a free consultation.
Yeah, there's a gap. I mean, at least in the tax side, I know that there's more. I run across a lot of crypto CPAs that are on Twitter, but the market, I think right now is really demanding more serious advisors to kind of come out of the woodwork. And it's folks that, of course, can explain the difference between the proof of stake and proof of work networks. I think that's extremely important, which some of that does get technical. And that is a piece of this, right? Like, I don't know how many hours you and I combined have listened to Bitcoin related content, be it podcasts or read books. But there is a lot of work and there's a lot of things to actually understand. And that's why so many people they just give up. They're like, I don't understand it. So if I don't understand it, I'm not going to invest in it. I'm not going to, put any time into this. And so I would say that's probably one of our just fiduciary duties at this point, specifically, definitely on your side, to be able to explain, here's the value prop of Bitcoin, and here's why you should at least look into it, and I can help you with the education side. And then once you feel comfortable with understanding what it is and why you should probably get some of it, why it's smart to get some, then I can help you buy and hold through all the turbulence, because of course there is turbulence. There's a lot going on in the world, which I'm sure we'll touch on some of those pieces over the course of the show with the different guests. But yeah, if you're going to someone who doesn't understand what Bitcoin is, just your, run-of-the-mill advisor, right? I think that they're probably dropping the ball a little bit, especially now that we're sitting here at the end of November. The ETFs have been out for almost 2 years at this point, right? And so clients are having questions about what Bitcoin is. They've seen it run up and they've seen it pull back, and they've seen just all the things that have happened. Most people are focused on inflation, and Bitcoiners have been talking about inflation for a long time. Even the class of 2020, 2021, which I feel like a lot of the people I meet in the space are a part of that class. That's what originally got them into Bitcoin in the first place. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of our duty to educate advisors even on, okay, I understand you're not going to listen to Michael Saylor for 25 hours, over the course of a month. We did that, but that's okay. Like, if you don't want to do that, whatever. But we can explain it in a more succinct way to you, or if you want to just bring us in to talk to your clients directly, happy to do that as well. But I think there's still a lack of good education out there, and especially with guys like Peter McCormick. I totally support Peter doing what he wants to do, but there's shows that were very approachable for kind of the normie American that have pivoted. And I just don't think that there can be enough approachable Bitcoin content, especially for people in very, this is obviously a niche audience, and we're fine with that. I think that that's actually one of our big differentiators, right?
100%. I'm happy you brought that up, because we're not trying to be another Bitcoin podcast here, right? We want to focus specifically on folks working or building in the financial services industry, and we will help them integrate Bitcoin into it. And one of the things you touched on there, Jordan, that I think is crucially important is I also got into Bitcoin in 2020. Unfortunately, my shitcoining phase was pretty brief. I was guided by some quality folks in the industry, so I didn't get too wrecked there, unfortunately, like a lot of people do. But I've always had such a pessimistic attitude towards crypto, and I think they give this industry, or Bitcoin, really such a bad name. I think it's extremely degenerate. It's foolish. I don't like how the crypto folks carry themselves, and I think that's really kind of prevented a lot of the professional service providers that take themselves seriously. They want to do good work. They want to offer quality services to their clients, from being shy to adopting Bitcoin specifically. You and I are both Bitcoin only. We're not interested in helping clients or other service professionals adopt anything crypto related. And so I think it's important for the folks we're specifically trying to reach to understand that if you haven't integrated Bitcoin into your practice yet, you're missing the boat. And I can't tell you how many new clients I've gotten because they've had an existing relationship with a financial advisor. They're very into Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a growing part of their portfolio. And when they bring it up, they get laughed at or they get told to sell. And you really just kind of show your hand as not understanding potentially the most important technology and asset class of our generation. And if you're not willing to embrace it or integrate it, and it doesn't have to be full bore right off the bat, you just got to start preparing yourself to be able to answer questions and facilitate it in your practice. We'll get into how that looks more down the road, and we'll be bringing on a series of professionals that have already done this. But the moral of the story is you need to start doing it, and if you don't, you will continue to lose clients. And I think one of the most valuable things you can do as an entrepreneur, obviously there's a lot of macro trends that are very hard to weather, AI and tariffs and all this stuff. Just plant the orange flag. Like, be bold about it, be proud, plant the orange flag, offer services around Bitcoin, and you will stand out from your competition.
Yeah. It's interesting. Even so, I sit in on some client meetings with their financial advisor. If it makes sense, if we overlap on the work, and it's just best to be efficient with the client's time, and we can answer questions on both sides. And I don't know if I think it was the week before last, but I was in a meeting in person, and the client was actually asking about what their portfolio looked like, and it was the day that we dropped all the way down to 80. So it really wasn't that long ago, but the advisor even was like, went immediately on the defense, right? It was essentially saying, well, I should say, they kind of laid off the big tranches of the portfolio, which was kind of the normal 60-40-ish, this was for an older client. And so maybe it was 40-60, I don't know. But all that to say, it got to it where it was like, oh, we also have, 1 or 2% in alternatives. And the client asked, so what are the alternatives? And the advisor said, it's some gold, and don't freak out, but it is a little bit of Bitcoin. And it, of course, I work with a lot of normie clients and also Bitcoiners. So I know exactly how to kind of play both sides of it. But it was just funny. I mean, I had to bite my tongue and that's not my role in the meeting, is to talk about investment strategy at all. So that's not my place. So I didn't say anything, but I did have to, like, internally have a bit of a smile on, well, if you understand what Bitcoin is, you've taken a long-term view on the asset. And so one might see this opportunity actually as a nice buying opportunity. It's that classic, I mean, I'm going to bring up memes all the time, I guess, on the show, but it's that classic meme of like, oh, when it goes way up and it's that guy who's like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't buy. And then when it just dips down, when he has the opportunity to actually buy at a lower cost base, he's like, oh, I'm not buying that. And then that just happens over and over and over again. So I think that's the other piece and that's just classic. Every advisor knows that to their core, right? You take long-term positions, and sure, there's fluctuations, but that's why you get higher rate of returns than just going and buying treasury bonds or something like that. So yeah, there's just so much to, I think, even help framing the conversations for advisors with their clients on the portfolio management side. And it's going to be really important as Bitcoin becomes what it does. It naturally becomes a larger portion of your portfolio over time, just because, generally speaking, it outpaces the fiat growth of other asset classes. And so then there's a question of, well, do we rebalance or do we double down? And of course, that's again not my thing to at least advise clients on, but all of us Bitcoiners at this point, we have our opinions, and there's no real hiding that. So,
well, I think it's a beautiful example, because there's two great trends there that I think we'll be touching on a lot over the course of this podcast. And I think one is helping financial professionals understand how to talk with Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners are a unique bunch, and I love that graph that gets circulated on Twitter every once in a while of the personality types, and Myers-Briggs personality types. I think it's like vast majority is ENTJ and INTJ, and I think that's just like an interesting data point, because Bitcoiners do generally have a way of thinking, and they're wired a particular way. And I think a certain type of person is attracted to Bitcoin. And so one of the things, or one of the ways I think I stand out from my competition, is I speak my client's language. It's like understanding like the language of Bitcoin, which is, fairly chronically online, and understanding the memes and, what they mean and what they're trying to achieve. And so that advisor, like you were saying, automatically taking a defensive position, trying to justify like allocation in the best performing asset over the last 10 years. You don't want to be on your heels with this kind of stuff. Like, you want to be proud, and then you need to be able to, obviously communicate your investment thesis. And the second trend, I think, too, is we'll be talking about how to integrate Bitcoin in your practice and what that means for the service you offer and the business model. Any tweaks you need to make to your business model. One of the things I, specifically do that I've been talking a lot more wealth managers about is, Bitcoiners don't necessarily want to be charged AUM fees on Bitcoin. And it's like, okay, if you're sitting in your wealth manager chair, are you just allocating 1 to 5% of their Bitcoin or their portfolio into the Bitcoin ETF just to say that you have some Bitcoin exposure? Or are you actually doing good work to try to get them to have some self-custody Bitcoin and be fully in control of their wealth? And then how are you charging on that? So Bitcoin will force you to reevaluate your business practices, I think, for the better. Bitcoin has a way of aligning incentives, and I think that just comes from its beautiful design to begin with. I think it's very unique in that aspect. And so we'll help you walk through these conversations, and we're going to bring on folks to talk to you how they've done it. We'll obviously share our opinions on how we've done it, how we've seen other folks do it. And this is really meant to be not something you should shy away from, but rather a learning experience to get the wheels turning.
If you're a financial professional working with Bitcoin, you know the pain of messy CSVs, broken cost basis, and accounting tools that were never built for this asset. Bitment fixes that. Bitment is the Bitcoin native accounting platform built for CPAs, bookkeepers, advisors, miners, and serious Bitcoin investors. You get clean Bitcoin bank statements, reliable cost basis tracking, full reporting, and fiat integration through Plaid. No crypto talk, no workarounds, just proper accounting for the hardest money on earth. Create a free account or book a demo at bitment.co today. Yeah. And I think highlighting even for the small business clients that we work with, and I'm sure that, well, we can definitely attest on our side, you integrate Bitcoin. It is scary at first, but you learn and you test things with small amounts, and it's honestly, it's fun. If you've never really played around with a computer or gotten into like the terminal and written any code for fun, it actually is kind of interesting to see these tools talk to each other and then understand that I can send money directly to Wyatt, and we didn't have to go through Chase Bank and see if JP Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon are okay with our business relationship. And of course, they don't have a good record on that anyways, but as we might get into at some point. But it really, the tech itself, for someone who never went to school to study anything with computer science, is very interesting. So that's a fun part. But of course, we're in the industry of helping clients, baseline keep their wealth, right? But in most cases, try to earn, where they have more wealth at the end of our time together. And seeing how some of these businesses who have been earlier movers in the space, in the Bitcoin space, grow their balance sheet or grow their P&L or grow both, has just been really interesting to me. These merchants now that are able to collect a revenue in either Bitcoin or fiat, and they see Bitcoiners move, they vote with their money, right? And so if they see whatever, pick the business, service, or good out there who is out there, they're just willing to accept Bitcoin for their goods or services. We are willing to go either spend our dollars or spend our Bitcoin and then replace it on the back end and actually go support that business. And probably Steak and Shake is like the most prominent example that comes to mind of a quasi-dying business, right? That took a stand, I guess about a year and a half, year ago. And my understanding is that their quarter-on-quarter earnings and top line, like everything is trending. It's all like done a 180 in the positive direction. And so that's the other piece of the puzzle, is that for anyone who's brave enough, who also puts in the proof of work to learn and then implements these strategies either in their own personal investments or their business, they're going to reap a benefit, because Bitcoiners like to say we're still early, and I believe that we're still very early on all of this. So that's another part. I know we both work with small business owners a good chunk of our time, and that the tools are coming online now. It makes it much easier. It makes it an easier pitch, right, to onboard those small business owners than it was trying to set somebody up on a BTC Pay server maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, 100%. And that's why I think, to allude more on my previous point of why Bitcoin financial services is such an exciting industry to be in right now. And we'll be bringing these folks on to discuss on the pod, but I'm extremely thankful for the entrepreneurs and builders in this space, because my point as an advisor, we have companies like Orange Bridge and Horizon that are building out home equity line of credit products to simply buy Bitcoin. We have Zach Townsend over at Meanwhile, who's built a Bitcoin denominated whole life insurance policy. We have a lot of different lending companies that are popping up. And so we have a lot of tools and resources at our fingertips that weren't necessarily there 2 to 3 years ago to help our clients better utilize their Bitcoin, to better acquire more Bitcoin, to utilize different assets to further their Bitcoin acquisition and utilization strategies. And so I think that's extremely exciting, and we'll be helping our audience learn about what these tools are, who's building these tools. I think one of the most important things you can be doing from our seats, Jordan, working with clients, is just understanding how to perform due diligence on Bitcoin companies or companies operating within the Bitcoin space. When I go to a new service provider, one of the things I look for first is like, do they service crypto? Do they have a token? Bitcoiners don't want to work with these types of companies. And I tend to be of the belief where I'm probably going to be pretty judgmental off the bat if you do any of those things. And I'm going to question and judge your incentive structure, because I already think you're leading consumers down a road that shouldn't be traveled. And so we'll help, different professionals, identify what is valid or not. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of scams in this industry that we have to overcome. So just identifying quality service providers to work with. And to your point, Jordan, there, I was in 2024, I went to Bitcoin for Corporations, Michael Saylor's conference, and he had, I believe, the president of BTC Media, and he gave a keynote just about the brand of Bitcoin. This to your Steak and Shake point, where Bitcoin has an amazing brand, and it has a very cool brand. And if you're able to tap into that, that gives you, I think, tremendous competitive advantage by just embracing Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. Where we need to be cognizant of what that means, I think something we're going to hopefully help steer the ship on in this industry is the culture of Bitcoin's kind of this amorphous thing, right? It's a grassroots movement. Satoshi Nakamoto's pseudonym. No one company, country, or individual controls Bitcoin. So it's the individuals that interact with the protocol that really kind of shape its future, which is extremely exciting. And I think regardless of what industry you operate in, you have the responsibility to build that industry within the principles, ethos, and values of Bitcoin. And what Jordan and I are specifically trying to do is apply those to the financial services industry.
Yeah. I mean, if you just take a step back, right? Broadly speaking, trust is at potentially all-time lows, right? And I love the point that you brought up about us helping professionals identify the correct partners in the space and be able to very quickly sniff out folks who are just potentially running not all the way scams, but things that could easily rug their clients. Because all of us know, if you make a recommendation to your client for them to go use a service or some kind of product, and it turns out that is not legitimate, you refer your client to BlockFi or FTX, God forbid, a few years back, you most likely lose that client. You potentially find yourself in some legal trouble. And so that's it's funny. I almost think about us, you and I probably both watch Marty and Matt on Rabbit Hole Recap, right? They are kind of constantly on the cutting edge of, hey, should you use this tool? And more so on the wallet side, the kind of more technical side of things, be it Lightning, multi-sig, some of the mini script type of tech that's coming out. That's, again, no financial advisor is going to go read a GitHub repo, right? So that's not our audience. But for us, there's all these financial services companies that are popping up. And I would love for us to serve the role of, hey, look, we vetted these people. We've either, got on calls with the founders, we've interviewed folks, and we're critical. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about Bitcoiners is that we hold ourselves, our companies, our partners, everyone in our lives to a very high standard. And, some people call us maximalists or say that we're toxic for that. But it really comes down to we've seen too many people get burned, and there are unsuspecting folks who come into a situation and they are they're the retail that buys what the big players are selling, and they get screwed. And so it's important. I mean, even some of these Bitcoin treasury companies, I think that still has to play its course, but financial advisors play an extremely important role to help clients think through what are the actual fundamentals in this. Why are we putting money in this versus actually just buying out real outright Bitcoin? And so there's just constantly, there's things changing. So I really love that we are helping really at the advisor level, because you help an advisor understand these concepts. You don't just it's not a one-to-one where you reach a client, you reach a service provider that then helps you actually reach closer to 100, 200, 300 clients, like however they service within their firm. And that's just a nice multiplying effect, right? So, and it's something we're up against, because even XRP, right? You talk to any, dude, you talk to any just normal, like a server or an Uber driver or just kind of anyone off the street. And if you mention Bitcoin, it's so funny at this point to me. I almost think they're kidding with me. Like, I think that I've heard it so much. I'm like, I almost want to be like, you're joking, right? But they're not. And so in some ways, I think we have to upgrade Bitcoin's marketing team, which of course it doesn't have an actual marketing team other than just Bitcoiners, to be able to reach people and protect them from just a lot of misinformation out there is what I'll say. So.
Oh, it's crazy amounts of misinformation, man. And that's what, to your point about, earlier proof of stake versus proof of work networks, all these venture funded projects, if we want to call them that, they pour tons of money in these flashy marketing schemes that grabs people's attention. The XRP thing blows my freaking mind. I used to get texts about Ethereum or Solana. Now it's almost only exclusively XRP if it's not about Bitcoin. I've just wondered why that is, why it's kind of catching the zeitgeist. I have no idea. I generally just direct people to Pierre Rochard's profile. Pretty almost weekly he's destroying XRP, which is awesome. And he's a great resource to that. But yeah, to your point, Jordan, one of the reasons why, kind of building off the summit. So we weren't sure how the summit was going to go. We put a ton of work in it. Fortunately, I think we're both super proud and stoked with how it turned out. We got a ton of great feedback. All the attendees and the speakers had, very positive things to say. And so that was really all we needed to do, round two. So we already decided we're running back the summit in 2026, October 24th through 26th in Denver, Colorado at the space. Be there. We'll have exciting updates coming to the website and newsletter, but it was really from there where it's okay, we really have something going here. We kind of struck a nerve. And so we were just thinking of how we can make this bigger and better and more impactful for the folks we're trying to serve. And that just kind of naturally led into a long form conversation via the podcast so we can help build trust within this community. That's why I trust Marty and Matt. Met them a couple times offhand. They don't really know me from Adam, but I trust these guys because I've listened to hours and hours and hours of them for years. And so that was only because of the long form content they produce, and something Jordan and I take very seriously, stepping into that role of trying to do that same thing for our specific niche is actually taking the time to bring on these service providers and the people building these companies and talk to them about how they run their companies and talk to them about the business model decisions they made to intentionally service Bitcoiners and Bitcoiners only. And so I think that's going to be extremely valuable. I still like to do business a bit of an old school way. I think you got this in you as well, Jordan, where I don't really feel comfortable recommending a partner or vendor to a client if I haven't actually sat down and talked with them and gotten the opportunity to understand how their business works. And so that's one of the things I'm most excited about doing this, and just having this long form content component on top of the summit to make the community more robust and the summit even more fruitful.
This episode is brought to you by Satoshi Pacioli, a full-service accounting and tax firm built for the Bitcoin economy. If you run a Bitcoin business, mine Bitcoin, or invest in it, you need advisors who actually understand how this industry works. Satoshi Pacioli handles bookkeeping, financial reporting, tax compliance, and strategic planning for Bitcoin-focused companies and individuals. They speak the language of Bitcoiners and help you stay compliant while building for the long term. To learn more or book a consultation, visit satoshipacioli.com. Yeah. So I think we should probably just make sure. So the cadence of the show will be a weekly show. We're going to see, how many weeks we can get in a row. I know Marty and Matt are at some large number. And of course, we're not competing with Marty and Matt, but they do keep coming up because they kind of are one of the shows I go back to when I do go back to Bitcoin podcasts. And you don't always, you get to a point where you're like, I don't listen to Bitcoin podcasts all the time. I know you're supposed to listen to 40 hours a week, but I
40 hours a week, man.
That's the other thing, is we're going to bring in some older advisors. We're going to bring them up to speed on the memes. That's just like ancillary benefit of listening to the show. And then this time next year, you're going to walk into Thanksgiving and you're going to know all the lingo for your millennials in the household, even potentially some Zoomers. I don't know, Wyatt, you're like right on the cusp, right? Are you officially a Zoomer or no?
It depends on who you ask. I'm like right on the cutoff year. So I generally just use it to my advantage, depending on the conversation I'm having.
I love it. So you're flip-flopping depending on if it's an older client, younger client.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I think that probably sums it up. I know that's just a big intro. There's so many pieces that we could really dive into. But of course, it is the day after Black Friday, meaning it is a Saturday. We've got our families and all of that. So we'll probably wrap it up here soon. I guess, do we want to maybe just give a high level of maybe a highlight from the actual summit, and then let's end with, maybe a few topics that you're excited about, speaking about in some of the future episodes. You gave everyone a teaser about all the companies that you are LP on, but maybe give us that teaser as well, Wyatt, and I'll do the same after you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things we did really well and we're really intentional about just building out the schedule of the summit. And so we built in a lot of time for folks to organically network. Like, I think the content was amazing. All the content's available on the Space YouTube channel at Denver Space. And so that was phenomenal. But when people go to conferences, myself included, I want to talk to people. That's how I justify the business expense. I want to potentially meet new clients. I want to potentially meet new business partners. If I learn something from the content, that's fantastic. And so I thought our networking segments were amazing. We had long breakfasts, long lunch. We brought everybody together for group meals in the evening. We had some entertainment with wine and bourbon tasting, and just giving people kind of that organic surface area to meet each other, to actually sit down and have a conversation, as opposed to some sort of like speed networking / dating, setup that's not very real or organic, I think is really important. And we're already kind of workshopping some ways we can, expand on that next year and tweak the schedule to offer more of that. But that was some of the things I enjoyed the most and got some of the most positive feedback on.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to point to, no, and I agree with all that, by the way, it was very crazy that Andrew Holmes came out. It was crazy that a lot of people came out. I mean, we could probably run down the list, and there's a lot of names on that list of like, wow, really gracious of them to spend their time with us. Andrew Holmes coming in, that was just a huge win. I'm very excited to hear, all the updates that he has going into the new year. And I'll be thrilled to have him on the show here as soon as we can, just because I think a lot of Bitcoiners are just asking themselves, especially younger Bitcoiners. So, we're $38 trillion in debt. So what are we doing here? You guys just going to hand that off to us and say good luck? And so I love what he's cooking up with BPI to help the U.S. government potentially dig themselves out of their debt hole using Bitcoin. So I really loved that. Loved having Morgan and Pierre come and speak. And then, we grabbed John from Zapright, the CEO and founder. He jumped on board. Man, it was like a week prior, I think, we talked to him, and he was like, "All right, I'm gonna be able to fly in from," like, he was somewhere in Canada or something. So, anyways, and that was one other fun part. Well, it's fun to look back on it now, but the event planning it's a whirlwind, right? You think you've got something. Oh, it changed. Oh, we've got to completely rewrite this part of it. And even doing that on the fly. I remember when the event was about to start on Friday. I don't know if you remember this. It's like, where's Pierre? We're about to start. We're about to start. Like, we're kicking things off. He's the first keynote and he's nowhere to be found, right? And so, and of course, he made it in on time. Shout out to Pierre. With the whole family. That was the other thing. Very family-friendly oriented event, which we want to keep it that way. Just because Bitcoiners have families. We are, if nothing else, dude, we will we will make sure to out reproduce the XRP guys almost certainly. So bullish on that. And then I guess on my side specifically, when I look out to some of the different topics that I know we'll cover, of course, I'm in the accounting tax side, so getting into some different strategies for being as efficient as possible on taxes. I'm curious to learn more from you, Wyatt, and some of our guests, exactly what you all think about some different income strategies with Bitcoin. So earning a legitimate yield on your Bitcoin, whether that's peer-to-peer lending or potentially some option strategies with something like an IBIT, or posting Bitcoin to the Lightning Network and earning a routing fee. Just getting into the weeds on legitimate practices within the Bitcoin ecosystem versus, hey, give me your coins, I'm going to pay you this high yield. And anyone with half a brain is sitting around thinking, well, how are you paying me 10% on my whatever Solana holdings or whatever, right? How are you making money on that deal? And I think that's a legitimate question that everyone should be asking. And so it's just that classic, like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So I'm excited for some Bitcoiners to even, teach me some things through this process to say, hey, you're thinking about that wrong. This is a blind spot that you've got, but I'll help you see it. And then you're going to help your clients make sure they see it as well. So it's so exciting. I couldn't be more excited. So
100%. No, I'm excited to get into all those things as well. I always learn a ton from you, Jordan, on the tax side. Do make quite a few mental notes. I was like, I probably shouldn't do that again. Or it's like, oh, that's good to know. Like, whoops. And so that will be just great, general knowledge. I'm very excited to break down these products and understand. Yeah, it's like, okay, how are you generating the yield? How is my Bitcoin custody? All these things are very important for us to understand. One of the things I will be hammering home quite a bit is, I think specifically the wealth management industry has needed to change for a long time. I think even TradFi normies are kind of sick of the standard AUM fees just to be put into passive index funds. And so I think Bitcoin is really going to shake up this specific subsect of the financial services industry. I'm really excited to be on the leading front of that and talking to other folks that are on the leading front of that, and really kind of trying to help wealth managers specifically understand their business model, how their business model can change on a Bitcoin standard, what type of services would be new or pertinent for them to offer, like being a key agent. So I think this industry has been ripe for disruption for a long time. I think Bitcoin is going to have a big role to play in that. And then just something I think we can add the most value to our audience building on the summit is one of the most impactful things I've done in my career is join the Bitcoin Financial Advisors Network. And that's a brain trust about 11 other advisors across the country that lead with Bitcoin, and they're Bitcoin, financial advisors. And we have a quarterly call, brain trust call to bounce up different case study ideas or talk about different, custody solutions or lending products. And one of the things as we get this really humming is we want to focus heavily on building out a community. We have a Signal chat. We're looking to build a forum as well. We're getting a newsletter started. And I would just encourage everybody to really plug in to the community aspect and work with other like-minded professionals and understand the Bitcoin pie is so large and there's such a growing contingency of Bitcoin wealth out there that you are very much more on the same team than you are competitors, and that everybody has the opportunity to win in this scenario. And so I'm really excited about getting this community aspect off the ground, because I've learned more from Bitcoiners than anybody else. And I think we have a really cool opportunity to help facilitate that in the financial services industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll make sure that there's links in the description of the video and of the podcast to join the Signal group. Of course, there are rules in there. If you do try to, tout a shitcoin, you're going to be removed. And so we kind of lead with that. So we're not pulling any punches if that happens to you. We were very upfront with that, and we'll continue to be. So I would echo that too. We're excited to build a community of folks and help people build their businesses, grow their wealth, grow a legacy for their family. And it's great. So I think we will lead off or leave it there. We will be back next. Well, I guess, are there any announcements on your side, Wyatt? Anything you want to talk through? I guess this will probably come out, I hope next Wednesday, which would be the 3rd, December 3rd.
Yeah, we just have a lot of exciting things kind of kicking off here very shortly. We got updated website. Like I mentioned, we got the newsletter and the Signal chat. So I encourage you to follow along with all those things, like and subscribe and share all these so we can really kind of help get some momentum going and help, market and get the word out for the summit better next year. That's really kind of, our bread and butter. And this is just really, all these efforts are meant to support the summit, because there's nothing better than get Bitcoiners together in person. So just be on the lookout for that. I will be at Bitcoin MENA. Would love to meet up with anybody, in this space who would love to chat. Jordan and I are pretty frequently getting to different Bitcoin conferences. And so would love to bump into you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And the only thing I would say, so if it comes out on the 3rd, a week later, if you are in the Nashville area, we will be hosting a Bitcoin tax and policy update. We're partnering with BPI. That'll be at the Bitcoin Park, and it will be December 10th from 5 to 8 p.m. Central Time. So if you're around, there's the meetup.com. You can go to the Bitcoin Park site and sign up. It's free to attend. So we'll just be discussing, be on the lookout. We might be having a U.S. Senator come in and give a quick little fireside chat. But on the tax side specifically, we're going to be giving an update on Big Beautiful Bill, how that changes personal and business tax considerations. And then also, we'll hone in a little bit on the bonus depreciation side for our business clients, and then any of our clients that are in the Bitcoin mining space, because at that point we'll still have roughly 3 weeks to make some adjustments if needed prior to year end. So if you're around Nashville area, make sure to come out. So cool. All right, well, we'll leave it there. If you have any questions, or if you want to request that we speak about any topics, or you have a suggestion on someone we should bring onto the show here, you can actually shoot us an email at contact@bffs.media, and we are monitoring that email and we'll get back to you. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in to the first episode, and we will see you next time.
Hey all, we appreciate you joining us. If you want to help us build the future of Bitcoin and financial services, hit subscribe, leave a review, and sign up for a newsletter, and share this with someone in your network who's integrating Bitcoin into their practice. The more professionals we reach, the stronger the ecosystem becomes, and our clients are better served. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, and keep leading from the front.